So now what I'm going to do is get onto some external exam advice and some prep. So my advice for external exams is to make sure that you go through every single dot point on the syllabus and write the general process for that type of question and any strategies that you pick up. So what I did is I copy pasted the whole syllabus and wrote notes under each of the syllabus dot points just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And then once you get the basics, make sure that you practice like really hard questions, right? Don't kind of just practice the easier questions. Make sure you really challenge yourself because that's the time that you learn the most effectively, the most efficiently, and you're really extending yourself. So this develops your problem-solving skills for complex and familiar questions, and actually helps you understand the concepts way more thoroughly. It's also just more entertaining, in my opinion. If I'm kind of stuck doing easy questions, I get kind of bored. And then make sure you use as many resources as you have available to you. So that might include different textbooks, study guides, libraries, or even Googling questions. Really look in as many places as you possibly can. It's not listed here, but you can even go and look at the other states' external exams. Like if you look at WA or Victoria, New South Wales, all that kind of stuff, some of the content really won't be relevant to our content, but if you're really looking for some more things to do, you can have a look through and see if there's anything that looks relevant to what we've been doing. And have a go at those questions too. The good thing about that is also they usually make the worked solutions available online. So you can check your answers, and if you're confused about getting an answer wrong, you can usually figure out where you went wrong. This is just a quick snip of the beginning of my external exam notes, just because, kind of an example of what I'm talking about. So in the green, I have the syllabus dot points. And then underneath each, I either have, if there's any formulas that I need to remember. So for example, when we're looking at vectors, all these formulas about x, y, and z, and unit vectors and so forth are not on the formula sheet, so I put those there. The equation of a sphere, the midpoint of a vector, equation of a straight line, are not on the formula sheet, so I wrote those down. Then I also wrote down any strategies. So for proof by induction, I have using index laws, factorizing, expanding the right-hand side, trig identities, making the denominator the same, and using factorials. So those would have just been things that I came across when I was doing more difficult questions, and I came across strategies that I popped in there to just make sure that I was constantly reminded of them. Even if I did those questions like earlier in the year, nowhere even near the externals. Then this is just a special document that I made specifically for integration. So this is another thing that you could do if you were having trouble with a particular topic. So I kind of made a table, as you can see here, of a particular type of hard question that I had come across, and then things you could potentially try to solve that question. So if we have something like a denominator being a quadratic with a constant for a numerator, you could factorize and use partial fractions. You could use inverse tan. If you can't factorize, you can complete the square, and it might be an inverse tan integral. And then you can use linear substitution for the linear function inside the brackets. So as I said, that really is just making sure that you're taking thorough notes and doing complex questions so that your notes really are useful to you. Getting onto internal exam prep. If your teacher gives you a list of revision questions, practice them until you would rather die than do them again, right? This really cements the process in your brain. Another good thing to do if you're really dedicated is kind of brainstorm the ways in which these questions could be changed to be harder. So typically that's what teachers will do. If they're going to give you a complex unfamiliar question, say on modeling motion, right? Um, they'll give you like an easier question and then change a few aspects to make it complex familiar, complex unfamiliar. So if you brainstorm some ways to kind of make that question harder and then figure out how to do it, so it might be something about going backwards, using only variables instead of numbers, proving a particular expression or equation, or merging two different topics together. An example of this that I have here is in our revision, we got something about a cylindrical hole being drilled through a sphere, and we found the volume of the bead using a volume of solid revolution. And they came up with a few different ways to make that question a little bit harder. So, general exam prep, every single time you make a mistake, make sure that you make a note of it so that you remember not to make that same mistake on the day, especially if it's something that you find yourself doing a lot. A lot of students have an amazing understanding of the concepts, but are like just deficient in algebra skills, which is really important, especially in the tech-free exams. So make sure that you're practicing your algebra skills. You're not taking any shortcuts. If it's a tech-free question, make sure you're forcing yourself to not use your calculator. And kind of also learning new methods to use in algebra, because you kind of do like learn new cool things to do when you're doing a lot of questions. Another thing you can do if you're really struggling to kind of keep up your motivation is kind of read some books about it. Some of the tips that I got from books were, firstly, if you feel yourself losing focus when you're studying, make sure you oxygenate your brain. That seems pretty common knowledge, but a lot of people don't do it. Doing questions that are kind of just too hard for you is the most productive way to learn, because that's when you have to put the most effort into what you're learning instead of just kind of like breezing through and following a particular procedure. You're really putting a lot of effort in your brain into learning. Obviously, this doesn't work if the question is way too hard for you and you have no idea what you're doing. But when it's just too hard, that's really when you learn the most efficiently. Of course, then because you're putting more effort into when you're learning, you can spend less time studying too. Another good thing, which sounds a little bit psychotic, is to listen to the same songs over and over again. I still do this in university. If you kind of get like a pretty regular, like an upbeat song, kind of like a pop song, and listen to it on repeat, it kind of puts you into this zone. Essentially, it's actually shown in studies, which is crazy. But it puts you into this zone, and it's really easy to focus when you do that. For high achievers, the most common source of lost marks isn't lack of knowledge, but it's A, making lots of small mistakes, and B, getting stressed on the day. So for avoiding making small mistakes, make sure that you understand the content, right? What I have down here is mostly about checking your work, which is, I guess, just a patience thing, which you need to get better at. But really do make sure that you understand the content too, because when you really understand the content, you're far less likely to make a conceptual error. And then getting up to like kind of like the small, really annoying errors, make sure you've written down every formula correctly. Infamous example, when I was in year 12, I didn't check the formula for the area of a triangle in my formula sheet, so I forgot the half out the front. And that was the lost mark that pushed me over the edge from getting a 15 to a 14. So I ended up getting like 92 point something. And if I just put the half out the front, I would have scraped through to a 15. Anyway. Make sure you copy down your values correctly, that you haven't misread a number, especially if your writing is a little bit messy. In tech-free tests, mentally check your arithmetic. This is really important. It's really easy to kind of do silly things, like 2 plus 3 is 6 kind of thing. Just really make sure you're checking over everything. Be really kind of harsh with yourself and go through and check everything that you've done. It's really good if you have a really good understanding of the content, so you're able to do the questions fast and then go through and check all of your answers. And then also as well, figure out what mistakes you make the most often when you're practicing and focus on not making those on the exam. If you tend to find that you get stressed, figure out some strategies that help. Something that helps is practicing questions until you're so bored that you'd rather die than do it again. You're burning the process into your brain. So even if you get stressed and feel like you are forgetting the process, it's so burned into your brain that you will not forget it. And then probably the most important thing is to just don't talk negatively about it to yourself. If you're constantly thinking, I'm so stressed, I'm going to make so many mistakes, yada, 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 it puts yourself in that mindset, right? Whenever I went into a maths exam, I had a massive, I was massively confident, right? Like to the point where it was kind of annoying, probably, You're almost delusional. You need to think so positively about it, that you just kind of that you're able to do better because your brain is like more open to thinking of ways to figure out answers, more open to not making mistakes, that kind of thing. Right? During an exam, make sure for complex questions your communication is on point. Write all your formulas, define all your variables, write headings, draw separate diagrams, and have a look at the marking sheets if those help you as well. And always remember to, or that if you have a 1-mark question, they generally only require an answer with units if it's necessary. Again, make sure you are looking after yourself physically and mentally. There's a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of pressure to do well from a lot of different people. But really just remember to, take it as you go. It's going to be okay. At this point, you have 4 months until your externals. And you might have an internal exam coming up, but that's only worth 15%. So really just try to relax. Anything is possible. If you get really stressed about it and really worried, that's when you're going to kind of miss out on life a little bit, right? You want to make sure that you're enjoying your life and doing well as well. So that means both not studying every second of the day and also not procrastinating study and feeling guilty every second of the day for not doing it, even though you didn't even end up getting anything done, right? Make sure you're not doing either of those. Make sure you're studying a little bit and then not feeling guilty when you are not studying and enjoying your life. All right. With all of that being said, we have a few questions at the end here that we don't have time to get to today. But please feel free to go through the slides and have a go at these. and the answers are available at the end of the slides as well. With all of that being said, that is it for our content today. I wish you guys all of the luck with your external exam. I hope it goes really, really well for you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Year 12 experience, and have a great rest of your day. Alright, see ya.